Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Today's guests are Kenya's ambassador to the WTO, Ambassador Dr. Stephen Ndung'u Karau, and the Managing Director of the International Center for Trade and Sustainable Development, Deborah Voorhees. And so we come to the agenda for Kenya and the wider African continent. What do we expect to get out of this ministerial conference?
Thank you very much once again. I would first of all like to give a background. Africa has prepared well for this meeting. We had
When you say well, what do you mean?
We had an African trade ministers meeting here in July, where they met to try and develop their agenda as we come into the December meeting. Then they met again in Brussels to again define their agenda. And one thing is becoming crystal clear. They still would like to pursue the agenda that was developed in Doha, in the sense that the Doha issues have not been fully tackled. And one of the items that has not been fully tackled is agriculture. Fortunately, among the three pillars of agriculture, we have a lot of hope that one of them can be dealt with here in Nairobi.
Which one?
That is the export competition. We see a lot of goodwill from all sides and a lot of effort that is being put in, both by the developed countries, the developing, and so on. It would help in the sense that export competition subsidizes and makes it easier for those who have products to subsidize people selling those goods into the market by helping them in the following ways. You can get export credit. You get a very soft loan that allows you to get the product from whoever has produced it, pass it on into the world market, sell it, get your money, and then you come and pay back. Those credits really facilitate trade for the West, for the well-to-do, and so on. So we would like to see some of these credits, controlled, some rules put in by WTO that will control for how many days should you give that kind of credit, how much should you give, should you even give it in the first place if that particular product is already available from another country, from another WTO members. So you have export credits. Then we have what we call STEs, the state trading corporations. Corporations established by government to compete in the arena of trade. And some of them are mass producers. They are subsidized by government. We are saying there should be rules and laws that are going to govern these state enterprises, such that if we are talking of a free market, let the free market produce. You don't allow the state trading enterprises to be the ones that are subsidized by the state and then pour these goods into the market. So that is being looked at. Then you have food aid. If I overproduce in my country, I can decide I'll give country X this food in terms of food aid. But that food aid ends up in the general market. Again, we want rules in that arena which are going to define who exactly is entitled to food aid, how much should they get, how do we make sure it doesn't get into the world market and distort prices. So that's one of the issues that we have a lot of hope will be addressed in Nairobi.
When I listen to Deborah and Ambassador Karau, I'm thinking of an ideal world, if only that's the way we are living, all of us. And I refuse to be convinced that underdeveloped countries and the ones that are developing can be told by the first world to development. We must make believe in ourselves. We must make believe in African countries that want to develop so that they can produce, as Deborah has said and Ambassador has put it very clearly. But this belief that we can be told or like cut to a destination of development, there is no way. Because countries all over the world are not led by friendship. That's a lie. They are led by interest. The European countries, I'm sorry because the ambassador may not tell us that.
Why? He's a diplomat.
Yes, he's a diplomat. He cannot. Why would a European countries come all the way to Nairobi to help a child in Africa, where they cannot help the one in Morocco and Libya, which is neighboring them? We are talking of people led by their own interests. It is the African continent that ask us Kenyans to protect our interests and move into the world market, agree with the European countries or the US what we can do. But what Ambassador is talking about and what Deborah is talking about is an ideal situation. Ideal situation where we imagine that we can sit and agree this is what we are going to do. That when you are producing for your stomach. You are not producing to
in fact
so the hostile panel today.
Because Ambassador Karau in Geneva, you have the outlay of the European situation. But what do you expect, even as we lobby for our side, what do you expect
in terms of outcomes?
Yes, and there are the European farmers who are exacting pressure on the government to continue providing those subsidies so that they can, because they are addressing the domestic market and constituencies, which are, I'm sure, are as robust in pressing as we are against our own governments to get subsidies. So do you expect really a miracle, so to speak, that they are going to say, no, let's support those guys out there, you guys.
I think we are seeing as a
we're not asking them to do anything. We are understanding that there is hard work to do in a multilateral negotiation. Of course, everybody's there in their own interest. We'd be naive not to believe that. What we're saying is the WTO is the place where there is everybody. And the Africans, along with everybody else, should represent their own interest, should understand their own interest, should understand their collective interest, and engage in the hard work and discussion that Ambassador Karau and others will lead to get somewhere. Don't sit back thinking you're asking.
Nobody's sitting back and no, hang on.
But the question is there.
But the Ambassador says no one has been sitting back. There's been a lot of work.
There has been a great deal of work.
But we're more than 50 countries with competing interests, with different economies at different stages. Some of us are landlocked, some of us are not. Some of us are largely agrarian, some of us are commodity dependent. How do we forge a common agenda and then get to this point, as David says, where we are pushing for our own interests, and you have the richer countries able to, acquiesce, if you want, to those demands?
Not necessarily. I think the ambassador's right. A great deal of work has gone into developing that common agenda and finding the African common interest. And I personally believe that the Africans in all of our countries, I know it's Kenya, but throughout our continent, have developed a voice and are more mature than we have, than sometimes is thought, and are able to advance our agenda. The WTO, although I'm not saying it solves all the world's problems at all, and we got onto regional integration and domestic issues, but the WTO is the place where that voice can be
heard. That's true. That is the forum. That is the forum. The question is how realistic or how unrealistic is what we are demanding. Maybe that's why it's dragging on for so long and without any end in sight, because the things you're asking are impossible.
Maybe I can interject a bit. And I think Waweru here talked of everybody pursues their interests. True, I agree. I'm in Kenya, I'm fighting for Kenyan interests. I'll defend public stock holding and make sure that we are allowed to subsidize our farmers until our food stores are okay. But at the same time, I don't want to belittle that aspect of friendship. The whole world is not against us. The whole world is not against everybody else. We have, for example, the AGOA, and I'm sure you are all familiar with it. It's ours to take. It's just been renewed. We have re-ratified it into the WTO, confirming what the American government is offering us. It's up to us now to have the products to take into that market. Right now, we don't have enough. That's a market that is already available. What I told you, what is at play is bigger global competition. We have the two superpowers that are also facing each other. And America would not want to give China the same favor that is giving other developing countries. So that's how some of these principles are being embodied within the WTO. We have talked of special and differential, try and help developing countries to come up. improve your industries. This is why I have refused to just go into the bandwagon and just say so-and-so versus so-and-so.
But you can't. You're the host ambassador.
No, I
you
have,
can't take that.
I have to. I know. I agree. It's a difficult role, being the host. But at the same time, I have to advance the Kenyan interest, and I have done that. I have been siding with the African context that agriculture must be first and foremost that we address. But at the end of the day, it has to be us to be able to produce something to offer and to put it in the market. We are also, against Doha, we are also saying, as much as we are locked in this arena of Doha, the world is also moving. We have our SMEs. One of the agendas that we are pushing in Geneva is, let us also look at how we can help the small traders to get into the world market. There's a report that was produced in the last G20 meeting that is showing that adding value for the small SMEs, this is the way to go. These are the building blocks for bigger businesses, and we need to address them. We are looking at that. We are pursuing the Kenyan interest in that area. But I do agree, it's a difficult position being the host. We have to be neutral, but at the same time...
you did say something very important, Abbas, and I think that's what probably could have pursued to make this the debate even more interesting. That money is set aside even to support some of these countries. Because the basic question that the common mwananchi would be asking is simple. How is that Kenyan farmer in Kisumu competing with that American farmer somewhere in Texas? You know, when we talk about fair trade, are we talking about level playing ground?
Yes.
Because you cannot have a master at the same table with a slave, and they think they can talk at par. By the end of the day, and I'm not referring to any country being a master and the other one being a slave, but I'm trying to use that symbolically, where we are talking of we are sitting at the table and arguing. I can offer this, you can offer this, and we agree this is how we are going to operate. Otherwise, where some countries are only being used and seen to be a market, and they have allowed themselves to be used as such. When you say China is rated as a developing country, can you imagine it is also at the same level with Kenya? When actually we are a market for China, where everything here is Chinese, including even a laser blade. So we are talking of trade where I like what you are saying, that we are going to support even some of these countries, probably by setting aside some money, so that we can industrialize, we can do our agriculture using modern technology, not the archaic ways. The way the guy is digging somewhere, Deborah may not know, but Ambassador, you know.
Deborah is South African, she knows.
Ambassador knows. A guy in Kenya, that is in central Kenya, Mount Kenya region, is not the same way a guy is doing it in Sweden. So basically that's what we're saying, and I think, Deborah, you have put it so well. That WTO, it is there to make sure that it levels the ground, that countries sit and talk to one another.
In view of what Waweru is saying, should our argument be an end to subsidies, for example, for European farmers or agriculture, or should it be a transfer of some technology, technical support and financial facilities for our farmers to up their game?
It's actually, it should be both. It should be multi-pronged. Because as we said, subsidies, you can classify them into the essential level of subsidies, and we also subsidize here. The other countries also do. It's what we are addressing is the trade distorting subsidies. When you over-subsidize, you overproduce, and then you overwhelm the world market. And that's what we are saying, and then you are competing now with those of us who are still coming up. That's why I'm saying it has to be balanced. You reduce the distorting part of it, as you also help me to industrialize and to do my agriculture better, so I can produce better. So it's actually...
Are those subsidies, though, just the last one on that, are those subsidies applied in those countries targeted to export, or the basically domestic subsidies to achieve the own sustainability, sustenance?
I said it's also partly political. The farmers have been getting it in those countries for years.
Yes.
Okay? So there is a political element. If you come and withdraw it tomorrow,
yes.
I'll ask why.
Yes.
And there is a political premium to those who are in leadership.
And
Yes.
So, yes,
Yes,
so
yes.
it has to be done in a very, very balanced way. And in fact, recently, I think in the U.S., they just relooked at their laws with regard to some of these aspects, the famous Farm Bill, and there's still a lot of debates. What happened? Is that what should have happened? And so on. So it's something that is very politically sensitive, and I have quoted earlier, you have seen the farmers on the street in France.
Where does food sovereignty come in?
Where does?
Food sovereignty. Because you were talking earlier about agriculture and hopeful that at least on one of the pillars we would have a positive outcome. But
hopefully.
Well,
hopefully.
yes.
We are optimistic that it happens, yeah.
But this story that India was penalized for stockholding some of its reserves, how does that fit into the larger conversation? Because countries like Kenya, Egypt, Zambia also have those initiatives. So while we talk about subsidies and making sure that countries can sustain themselves,
okay, I think I mentioned earlier, and if I didn't clarify it, let me make it this time, that the WTO is both, it makes rules, it also makes sure those rules are enforced. So we do allow the subsidies that go into public stock holding and so on. But you have also to supervise that. As you stock for your own consumption, you don't go behind my back or behind other people's back and the same stocks you're putting in the world market. So we want to be sure there is discipline, that when you stockpile, you are stockpiling for your own food security. It is not to hide behind food security for your own needs, for your big population, to stockpile for the world market through the back door. And indeed there was between countries ongoing for just that kind of a thing. We have allowed you to stockpile rice, and that rice is finding way into the market. Right now there is a big war. I don't want to...
That clarifies things. Can we clarify something else before we take the break? This low-income developing countries, which is different from the least developed countries. And that's seen as a way of dividing the bloc. Remember, you say that most of the LDCs are in Africa.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I was just saying that stockpiling of produce and finding its way into the market is because there is that market. So if Africa covered its market, would there be that market available to do it?
The problem is, at what price are you bringing it to the world market?
Yes.
If you had an over-subsidized product, and you offload it to the market, to the world market at a lower price, and this is, now you are getting it. You are now getting it proper.
This lecture is working.
Now, if you offload it into the world market at a lower price, it's now fighting my farmer in Mwea, who is trying to produce rice. Already the world market, there is cheaper rice coming in. He's producing at the normal rate and so on, and his price is the normal price, the right price, but it's a cheaper product. So we want to stop that.
Now you are talking.
Yes.
So I think that's very important.
And WTO comes here because it enforces those laws.
When you mentioned about where?
Countries take each other to the WTO dispute settlement.
Let us talk about rice. Like in Kenya, Mwea is producing a lot of rice.
Yes.
But what Kenyans are consuming in their supermarket is from outside the country.
Yes.
But these are the controls that we are talking about. So that I, as a common Kenyan, when I go to the supermarket, I am taking rice from Mwea because we already got too much in this country. But you will not find Mwea rice in South Africa. You will not find Mwea rice in China. But we have all the rice from Pakistan in our stores.
Then that brings back to the question, why don't we then subsidize our product to the level where they compete with the cheap ones coming in?
Okay.
And that's been the traditional argument. That's the argument.
What will be the end point?
Where would it go?
What will be the end point? Because unless you control it through a certain rule, if I also over-subsidize, the other person maybe had a bigger treasury, they are going to subsidize at a higher amount. So there is no end to it.
We can't say that.
Okay, so let's carry on this discussion. Let's explore this further during the break. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. We'll be right back.
Thank you.